Alright, so you're thinking about getting into the tactical shooter genre. This is a bit of a pain to get into. There is definitely not a one-size-fits-all type of deal going for these games, alright? So I'm going to try to explain to you what a tactical shooter really is, in my opinion, and then I'm going to give you my top 5 favorite tactical shooters. Maybe one will strike your fancy and you want to check it out. Okay, so let's talk about what a tactical shooter really is, at least in my opinion. I think that they have to have realistic and tactical gameplay at their core, and they have to outweigh anything else that's more arcadey and just casual. So I think some examples of casual shooters would be CSGO, Call of Duty, Rainbow Six, games like that. But Rainbow Six is kind of a debated spot because while it does have the realistic damage and more punishing death timers, I think the gadgets are just too futuristic and unrealistic for it to be considered a tactical shooter to me, and it relies on too many unrealistic bugs to make good plays. You know, the movement's too fast. I just wouldn't consider it as it, but I think it'd be a good step if you're trying to get to realistic shooters, but you're not ready to quite make a leap there yet. And like I said before, they need to mostly be grounded in reality. Like wall running, big no-no. I think stamina should also have a pretty significant impact on how you play. You shouldn't be running around like you're Usain Bolt, even though you're wearing tens of pounds of rig and armor, even up to 100 pounds, you know? No one's going to be sprinting like a madman wearing that. Another thing, magazines. When you shoot off like half a magazine and put it away to pull out later, when you pull it out again later, it should still be at half a mag. It shouldn't be just like magically topped off and refilled by the ammo fairy. Alright, so those are just some of the things that I think make a good tactical shooter. If you disagree, it's my opinion, but that's what I think makes it good. And if you're liking what I'm saying so far, you're like, ooh, I could get into this, keep watching because I'm about to list off my 5 favorite ones. And I think if you're liking what I'm saying, you're going to like those too, and you're going to want to give them a try. If you're absolutely hating what I'm saying, and you're like, this sounds terrible, like the worst genre of games I've ever heard of, I've completely flipped my mind since I clicked here, hold up, because the next 2 are still pretty arcadey. I'm certain you'll have a fun time with them. They're not as hardcore as they can be, and they're still pretty casual. You can definitely have a fun time on them too, okay? Okay, so now we're at the fun part. I'm going to give you guys my top 5 favorite tactical shooters out there at the moment. And they're going to start off pretty chill with the more arcadey tactical shooters out there. And then we're going to get more to the grisly hardcore ones. Just large scale, PTSD, anxiety, freaking hand shaking monsters. But, I mean, that's kind of the reason why we love those ones. And real quick before we start the list, almost all of these games require you to have a microphone because they rely heavily on team play and teamwork. If you're not able to communicate with the team, you're kind of a burden on them. So make sure you got one. It doesn't have to be stellar, but just have a microphone ready. Also, one last quick disclaimer. Some of these games are not well optimized. None of them are AAA, so you'll need a pretty decent PC if you're wanting to run these at high resolutions at 60 FPS. It's not impossible to do it on low-end PCs. It's definitely been done, but it's just something you should be aware of. Okay then, to kick off the list, we're going to start with the first realistic shooter that I ever played and the one that got me into the tactical shooting genre, and that's going to be Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. So this is definitely my number 1 recommendation for people who are wanting to just dip their toes into the realistic shooter genre. The reason why I'd always recommend this one is because it's probably the easiest one to start out on. It's more arcadey than the rest, but like, don't get me wrong, your team can and will shoot you with bullets that are gonna hurt you. They're gonna hit realistically. If you take one to the head or the heart, you're out. A solid hit anywhere else and you're gonna be crawling in a mud puddle wrapping it up with dirty bandages. All right. There's also loads of smart players who do command roles where they can call in like military attacks, mostly napalm. It is Vietnam, so it's a lot of napalm, but they can also do things like increasing respawn time so you can get to the objective a little bit faster. With all that being said, I would not call this the most tactical and realistic of games. It's pretty fast paced for a tactical shooter. Deaths are pretty quick and respawn timers are also pretty quick at about 10 seconds. It doesn't really feel like death matters as much as some of the other ones on the list, and it's a lot less punishing than them as well. It's a good thing if you're new because it's not as harsh to get into. The skill ceiling isn't as high when you're just having to wait minutes in between lives, but one of its worst attributes has to be its community. Its player base can be very, very unbearable at times, alright? You cannot play one match of Rising Storm 2 without hearing some terrible and racist Vietnamese accents. They're just screaming, GI go home. Another thing, if you are in a helicopter, it is not required to blast Fortunate Son over your microphone. It was funny the first time, but it's starting to get old now. Another thing about this game is the graphics are not stellar. They're pretty dated, and it's definitely not winning any awards for beauty. The gameplay is the main reason you come though. You aren't here for screenshots. If you do care about graphics, keep an eye out on the next one on our list. It's pretty similar, and it's much more recent. Alright, well, if you're thinking Rising Storm 2 looks pretty good, I think you should check it out. I guarantee you'll have a fun time, and it's probably the best game on this list to make your way into the tactical shooter genre. It's the one that brought me in, and I haven't regretted it since. You can get it at $24.99 on Steam, and I will leave a link to that in the description, along with all the rest of these games. Well, alrighty, on to the next one. This game is also very similar to Rising Storm 2 Vietnam in the way that it's pretty arcadey and lets you ease into the genre. It has quick deaths and pretty fast respawn times. We're taking a look at Insurgency Sandstorm. So this game takes place mainly in the Middle East, and it has a lot of the same pros as Rising Storm 2, but on a smaller scale. I think the maps personally feel a bit smaller, and the commander abilities don't seem as cinematic or epic as they do in Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. This game is also fully boots on the ground, unlike Rising Storm 2, where you can pilot helicopters. It is entirely within an infantry setting, but the gameplay is on point. You can customize tons of your loadout with a pretty easy to understand point system that lets you make a loadout specific to what you're planning on doing, and it has a variety of roles like Rising Storm 2 that you can choose from. Honestly, it's very similar to Rising Storm 2, but it has better graphics, better sounds, and much better customizability. Another thing they share is an obnoxious player base. If you got sick of the bad Vietnamese accents, well, now you can have some bad Middle Eastern accents. Instead of hearing loads of GI go home, we now get Allahu Akbar. Yeah, perfect. This is the gamer player base at its finest. You also get a lot of suicide bombing jokes that you can actually play out. You can run in with a grenade. You'll see. Even with all that, I can't help but love this game. The sounds and graphics are just phenomenal, and the gameplay is realistic enough to be challenging, but in a more casual way since the matches aren't hours long. If you're looking for a more casual or realistic shooter like Rising Storm 2, but with better graphics in a new setting, this is it. It's $29.99 on the Steam store, and I think it's a great value. Alright, so now we're going to take it up a notch to the less casual tactical shooters. These are the ones that can have matches that can last upwards of an hour, and where some people think they're actually military generals. These are the Milsim games of the genre. The first Milsim tactical shooter I want to talk about is Arma 3. And this game I have mixed opinions about because it is arguably the king of all Milsim and tactical shooters, but I don't actually like it that much. I just heard a few gasps from the diehard tactical shooter fans. I'm sorry. This game could be the most popular tactical and Milsim shooter out there. If you play realistic shooters, I have no doubts that you've heard of Arma 3. And I'm just going to get the cons out first because I want to end it on a high note. So first of all, this game has a really high skill ceiling. It has so much to learn. It is definitely not a starter game. It's one that you want to do if you're just looking to dive right in and never come back out. The keybinds themselves can take at least a few days to learn, but it's really understandable when you see how insanely detailed the game is. The players also use a lot of slang for military terms, and it can take a bit to get used to and memorize, but I think that my biggest downside is performance issues. This game requires an absolute beast of a PC to run. It is not made for low tier gaming at all. Like I said earlier, I have a 1660 Ti and a Ryzen 7 3800X build, and it is still an absolute pain to run this game, unlike all the others on the list. But now that the cons are out of the way, we can move on to the pros, and there are many. This game did not become the king of Milsim and tactical shooters if it had no pros. And I think the biggest thing is how ridiculously detailed this game is. Holy crap, like I said, the keybinds are absolutely nuts, and what you can make your character do is just ridiculously cool. I'm still amazed that the crouch feature has more options than just stand, crouch, and prone. You can move your character incrementally for the best peek and the best crouch, and that's just an example of the crazy amount of detail there is in Arma 3. And did I mention the maps are absolutely giant? Altus is the largest map and it covers 270 square kilometers. That's huge for a video game. And another huge thing is the modding scene. Because the game's so detailed, it has one of the best modding scenes that I have seen in a modern day game. The Arma modding community is the reason we have other games like DayZ and PUBG. They both started as Arma mods, which I think is just a testament to how much you can do with this game. It's really an amazing sandbox. This game also is a step up from the last ones in terms of vehicles. While we saw helicopters in Rising Storm and nothing in Insurgency, this game has like everything, especially because of the modding community. If you can think of it, I'm certain there is a mod out there for it, so you can put it into your game. It kind of hurts though. I really want to love this game, but it's just too performance hungry and detail oriented for my tastes. I just want to be able to sit down and play the game. I don't want to have to focus on all these mods and different launchers. But if you really want a true milsim that eats your GPU alive, this is the best of the best. You can buy Arma 3 on Steam for $29.99. Kind of, because this game relies heavily on a DLC called the Apex DLC. Lots of servers run that map solely, so you're probably gonna have to add that to your purchase, and that is $24.99. Or you can just buy the Apex edition right off the bat for $65.40. Now for another milsim that's similar to Arma, but much simpler and much easier to run. It's also another one that I would highly recommend you to check out if you're looking to get into the milsim, but you don't want to go straight to Arma, because this is Squad. Now, the best way that I can describe Squad for you is it's like Arma, but everything that I didn't like about Arma got ripped out and thrown in the trash, and they expanded upon the stuff I did like, and they fixed the performance. It actually runs pretty well. It's very easy to get going. You download it, you press the server browser, you choose a server, you're done. You're in the game. And it's awesome if you're looking for a milsim. As the name implies, the gameplay is heavily focused on squad teamwork and not your kill to death ratio. In fact, it doesn't even show your kills or your death until the match ends. Squad is also really good with vehicles because it doesn't have just helicopters like Rising Storm, and it doesn't have too many vehicles to keep track of like Arma. It has logistics vehicles that you can use to take ammo and supplies to anywhere on the map, to build a base anywhere on the map, and it also has helicopters and armor, which is like tanks. So when you join, you get into a squad. Everyone joins a squad unless you suck and you're one of the guys who makes a squad by yourself. Come on, the game is called Squad. So every squad has a squad leader, and they relay information from you to command and information from command to you. All the other roles are players, there's no AI, and it just leads to some really cool and mind-blowing engagements. The explosion effects are so insanely cool, I cannot get enough of them, and like the rest of the games, the damage is realistic. I just wish, like all the other games, that the healing would be better. Like, why just bandages? At least this game adds a medic bag so you can top off your health. Anyways, this game is really sick, because it also has a pretty decent modding scene. My favorite mod being Galactic Contention. It's so easy to install, and it turns Squad into an entirely new game. A Star Wars, Clone Wars, tactical shooter milsim. I doubt you ever thought you'd hear that. It is so awesome. If you get Squad, you have to check it out. So, moral of the story, if you thought Arma sounded interesting but too hard, Squad is the best way to start getting into milsim tactical shooters. It is so fun. I highly recommend it. And the matches do take a while, but they're only like an hour, 2 hours max, so the game can still be played relatively casually. And if you're worried about learning milsim while not bothering the players, you don't have to worry about squad. The community is easily the friendliest I've met in any game. So if you want to go check out Squad, which again, I highly recommend it, you can go find it on Steam for $49.99, which honestly is a steal. I got it for 20 bucks a few years ago, and I have been loving every moment of it. Alright, you've made it to the end of the list, and now we have the final, most hardcore realistic shooter. That's Escape from Tarkov. And where do I even start with this game? It is absolutely brutal, and I and many others love it for that. It's totally different from the rest of this list because it isn't a Milsim, and it's not arcadey in any way, shape, or form. At all. It is easily the most realistic shooter on the market now in my opinion. Nothing can compare to Tarkov. The basis of the game is that you want to scavenge and do tasks on these incredibly detailed maps. They're not as big as Arma or Squad because it's not a Milsim, but they are definitely not small. So what you do is look for junk throughout the maps and sell it, or look for players to kill, loot, and then sell their stuff, or you can keep it for your own. Because the big thing that separates this game from the others is that all of your gear, guns, armor, bullets, mags, heals, you name it, it is all stored in a unified stash in the main menu. You choose what you take on raids, and you literally plan your magazines with your ammunition manually. If you die, the stuff you brought in is gone. Adios. You can insure it, and maybe it'll come back if no one else picks it up from the raid, but for the most part, if you bring it in, you don't keep it unless you escape at one of the specified locations. And by the way, you better memorize the maps, because there is nothing in game to lead you to exits save it for a compass. It's up to you to know how to get out. No map, minimal HUD, no name tags. If you're playing with your friends, you better be communicating, because you can definitely shoot each other in the head and lose millions of rubles worth of gear. Did I also mention heals are so insanely cool in this game? Your PMC, and that's your character, can get jacked up in all kinds of ways. There's light bleeds, heavy bleeds, broken bones, fractures, concussions, tunnel vision, blood loss, hunger, thirst. All these things have different healing items as well. You can have bandages, surgery kits, splints. It's insane. It's hardcore. It's overwhelming. It's rage-inducing. It is the perfect game you love to suck at. It's Tarkov, and I think that you should get it if you love to suffer. If that sounds like something you'd like to check out, the game costs $45 for the base edition, but other editions can go up to $140. Don't worry, you can just buy the base edition now and upgrade later if that's what you want to do. I also have a quick PSA for you guys about Escape from Tarkov. It is currently in beta, so it is not finished yet. They have new content drops every few months where they wipe everyone's inventories and you start from scratch. So if that doesn't sound like something you're down for, you might want to wait on Escape from Tarkov and check it out later. It is also the only game on this list that is not on Steam, so I will have a link to the Escape from Tarkov website in the description, along with the links to every other game in this video. Alright, so you made it to the end of the video. I hope one of those caught your eyes. I think that the tactical Milsim shooter genre is one of the best out there. I think it leads to the most fun gameplay and probably the most anxiety and adrenaline you can get from a game, especially Tarkov. That one's crazy. But I'd like to point out that I did not even scratch the surface on some of these games. Like Squad, Arma, and Tarkov have an insane amount of content in them, and there's no way I could have fit them all into this one video. So if you're looking at one of those and you're like, ooh, I want to try that out, make sure to do some extra research. I'm planning on making some separate videos on those three since they're so massive and I have such a good time playing them. But in the meantime, feel free to leave a comment about it and I'll try to reach out to you, answer any questions you have to the best of my ability. And also be sure to check out some other creators' videos on those three games. There's an insane amount of creators who like to make content solely focused on those because they're so huge. Alright, so I just finished editing the video. I'm a little scared to put it up. This is the first time I've ever uploaded anything. I had a fun time doing it though. Let me know if you had a fun time watching it, because seriously, I'd like to know how good it was. I have no clue. I'm one of the guys who's his own worst critic at 100% all the time. So I think this is possibly terrible flaming garbage, but if you liked it, please let me know. If you hated it, also let me know so I know to quit early before I hurt myself too much inside. I'm not going to give you the whole like, comment, subscribe spiel. I think it's a little bit overplayed at this point. You're your own person. You have your free will. You know you can do it. Do what you want. I'll see ya.